Today we are ranking all 414 spells in the convergence mod. This includes all spells and incantations. First, let's go over the criteria. Let's start off with the tier list. S tier. These are the spells that give you an auto win. They are so good that they basically play the game for you. A tier. These are great spells. They do lots of damage and are super effective in all scenarios. B tier. These are the spells that are good, but they're only great in niche scenarios, whether that's against a certain enemy type or needing to synergize with other spells. C tier. These are your basic spells. They get the job done, but you're only going to use them for a little bit and they'll get phased out rather quickly. They don't do anything special, or they just get outclassed at what they do. F tier. These spells are poop from a butt. You're not using these unless you want to struggle or you're doing some sort of challenge run. These spells are just really bad. But before we get into it, shout out to today's sponsor, Raycon. Now that the holidays are over, it's the perfect time to upgrade your gear for the new year. We all make big goals and resolutions coming into the new year. Staying in shape has always been a big personal goal of mine, and to make things easier, I've been using Raycon's bone conduction headphones, and they are amazing. You may be wondering, how do they work exactly? Well, Raycon's bone conduction headphones use off-ear audio, sending sound vibrations through your bones, leaving your ears open to hear the world around you. They are built for all-day use. They have a 13-hour battery life. They are IP68 waterproof and dustproof. I personally love that it's water resistant. I use them all of the time when I go on walks to the local grocery store, and they haven't had any issues. Even though here in Canada, it's been a mix of snow, rain, and even freezing rain, and they have worked perfectly fine. Here's the best part. Raycon gives you premium performance without that premium price tag. Their quality rivals the big audio brands for half the cost. Plus, over 3 million customers already love Raycon, and you could be one of them with a 30-day happiness guarantee. I personally use it, and you should too. It's the perfect time to upgrade your audio for the new year. Go to buyraycon.com/CurtisTheCactusBC to get 20% off site-wide. Thanks again to Raycon for sponsoring this video. Let's get back into it. But I do have experience using every single one of these spells. I have sometimes used them poorly, but I have used all 414 of these spells. If I don't put a spell where you would have, you can flame me in the comments below. All footage on screen will be with all of our stats set to level 99. We are using a maxed out final catalyst for each class, as well as the best set. There will also be a link to the tier list in the description if you want to make your own, and you can share them with me in my Discord, which will also be linked down there. And while you're down there, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Thank you. There is a massive epilepsy warning. There will be flashing lights with some of these spells, and so if you do have epilepsy, I do suggest you click off. I'm sorry. All right, starting off with the basics. The missionary of spell types, Glintstone. We're starting off hot with the Swift Glintstone Shard. It's fast and effective. It's low damage, but will get the job done. There's not too much to say about this one. This is one of the most basic spells of all time. It deserves its spot in the C tier. Carrion Slicer. The only downside of this spell is that it lacks range. You gotta be holding hands with the enemy if you're trying to do any sort of damage, but when you can get nice and close, this spell absolutely shreds, having an absurdly high DPS. I do think it still nets itself in the C tier. Glintstone Arc. This spell does more damage than the Swift Glintstone Shard, but it fires a lot slower, it doesn't have much range, and where it really shines is when you're fighting groups of enemies. It's not the best overall spell, but it's not bad by any means. C tier. Energy Shell. This is our first unique spell. This spell essentially converts all damage you would have taken from each hit into FP loss instead of HP loss. It really shines when you are very strong, when you have a ton of FP to spare, or if you're doing a mainly mage build. This makes it so you don't have to use any healing flasks. That being said, I do think this is a B tier spell. Great Glintstone Shard. This is basically an upgrade of Swift Glintstone Shard in every regard. It still fires fast, hits a lot harder, it takes a lot more FP. I do think it is worth the upgrade, and as you can see, we absolutely shred Radon here. I'm gonna have to give this a B tier. Scholar's Shield. This spell buffs your shield, reduces stamina damage while blocking by 35%, guarded damage negation by 30%, and guarded magic damage negation by 70%. That's really solid. The only downside is you actually have to use a shield. And that alone grants it F tier. If you're downloading this mod that gives you the most offensive capabilities and breaks the game by making you so overpowered that you can shred bosses in seconds, and you're using this spell on a shield, yeah, no, you're a nerd. Scholar's Armament. This spell is very simple. It buffs the weapon you're using with magic attack power, and if you're already using a magic weapon, it just gives some bonus damage. It's a basic spell, but it gets the job done. C tier. Carrion Piercer. This spell summons a large sword that you use to thrust forward with it. You can charge it to deal more damage. It stuns human enemies, which is a solid addition. It also just does some good overall damage. I think we'll slap this in the B tier. Sorcerer's Lucidity. First true buff spell. It reduces the FP cost of sorceries by 10%, reduces the stamina cost of attacks by 10%, and reduces weapons skill cost by 10%, and it lasts for 3 minutes. I think overall this is a good buff. Not great, but it's good. We will put it in the C tier. Carrion Greatsword. This spell uses a massive sword to deal a large amount of damage in big swipes. The only downside with this spell is just how long it takes to cast. That being said, I think it deserves B tier. Taupe's Barrier. This is a very unique spell. It's essentially a parry, but only works for spells, and only for some of them at that. It doesn't work against all spells, only the smaller projectiles that it can like parry away, and I find it works best if you just spam the spell. I don't truly see an actual use case for this, and if you can prove me wrong in the comments below, I will move it up, but for now it is sitting in that F tier. Shard Spiral. This spell shoots a spiral that travels slowly through the air at your enemy. It does damage as long as it's touching your enemy. It works the best on the bigger enemies or dragons because they're so large that the spell can travel through their whole body doing constant damage. Basically, bigger the enemy, the bigger the damage number, but in most cases it's just okay. It's good, it's not great. I will put it in the B tier. Great Blade Phalanx. The Phalanx spells are always a lot of fun. You have swords that float around you, and when you get too close to your enemy, they fire off. They do some really solid damage, and they pair well with other spells. Like you can cast this right off the start, use it as like a defensive barrier to spam your other spells, and then you know when the boss gets close enough, these are gonna fire off, and then you're like, okay, wait, I need to get out of here. I do think it's a solid spell. We will put it in B tier. Gavel of Haima. This spell conjures a big bonk hammer that you use to slam the ground, doing direct damage as well as like an AoE splash damage off of the slam. It can attack in twos and does some solid damage, but it suffers the same fate as the Carrion Greatsword, just being a little too slow. We will throw it into the B tier. Carrion Acuity. This spell enchants you with the strength of Glintstone, increasing your weapon magic damage by 5%, and each time you hit an enemy with your weapon, it grants you 5 FP. I do think this is a solid spell, especially if you are leaning towards a melee build, relying mostly on like your Ash of War. It gives you a way to regen FP on the fly without having to pot. A small amount of FP, but every little bit counts. I do think this falls into the C tier. Glintstone Breath. This is our first of many Dragon Breath spells. As long as you can get the proper space, these spells are always really good. As you can see, they do some good damage as long as your enemy is in the breath. The only downsides to this spell is that you're stuck in the animation once it's been started, and it can come up short sometimes, so I'm gonna put it in the B tier. Starlight. This is another buff spell. Not only does it light up the area around you, it also increases the damage of glint sorceries by 5% and regens 1 FP per second. I do think this is a pretty good buff spell. It's good. It's not great. I always appreciate the light. I'm going to put this in the B tier. Glintstone Comet Shard. Now this is the Glintstone spell. It's the one that you've seen the most because it has good range, good damage. You can charge it to do more. It doesn't take a ton of FP. This is the gold standard for shooty spells like this. I'm gonna slap it into the A tier. Carrion Phalanx. This is just a better version of our basic Phalanx. It uses a ton of small glintstone blades instead of those 3 swords, and it fires them off when the enemy gets too close. I think it does a significantly better job than the other Phalanx, and the Phalanx was already good, so I'm gonna put it in the A tier. Loretta's Great Bow. This is a super solid spell. You can quick fire it, you can charge it up. Either way, it's doing some good damage. It also has some great range and some pretty solid tracking, and I've always loved these sort of bow spells, so I'm gonna put it in the A tier. Glint Beam Orb. This is a very unique spell where you can quick cast for 1 orb or hold it down to spawn in multiple orbs that float above you and fire off at the enemy. It does a lot of damage, it looks very cool, and I just love this spell. spell. You can stack a ton of orbs and watch them melt the bosses for you. This is our first S tier. It literally plays the game for you if you cast enough of them. Like, you don't have to do anything. Smaragd's Glintstone Breath. This Glintstone Breath is a bit better than the one from earlier. It does more damage, it has more range, and it's just super fun to control. I'm gonna slap this into the A tier. Comet. This is the ultimate shooty spell. You can charge it for more damage, it's bigger, and it's a cooler looking projectile. It does more damage than the other Comet Shard. It is significantly more costly in the FP department. I do think this also deserves an A tier. I don't think it quite reaches the levels of S. Renala's Full Moon. You curl up into a little ball, conjuring a moon that flies into enemies until it explodes. It has surprisingly good tracking. It also debuffs the enemies that you hit with it, causing them to take 10% more damage. It does have one big downside, and that is just how long it leaves you vulnerable for, but it is still really good. I'm gonna put it in the A tier. Loretta's Mastery. This is a better version of the Loretta's Great Bow, firing off 4 arrows at once, all doing amazing damage, and it has great tracking. You can charge it up or just let it rip. This spell is amazing and has carried me a couple of times. The only downside is if you're too close to the ground, the 4th lowest shot can clip into the ground, becoming rather useless, but besides that, it's a perfect spell. S tier. Comet Azure. Do I even gotta say much? This spell is amazing. It shoots out a constant beam of damage for as long as you have FP for. Now, most of the time this spell being good is due to an infinite FP flask or a buff alongside it, and because it takes setup for it, I only think it deserves A tier on its own. Anima Magica. This is a great buff spell. For every glint sorcery you cast, it increases the damage you do by 1%, and that stacks up to 9 times. All previous effects are removed, and you gain a 15% damage increase, as well as reducing the cost of FP by 20%. You also gain a 20 FP regen per second, and on top of all of that, you gain an additional poise for 30 seconds. This is a great buff. It was making me do so much damage to where I had to go switch over to fighting more God just to show it off. A tier. Glintstone Nail. This is a very odd spell where it sort of like staggers through the air and almost like hops towards your foe. It does okay damage, it doesn't do anything too special, and it's kind of freaky. We're gonna put that in the C tier. Glintstone Nail. This is the same spell, but just a lot more of them. Equally as creepy, equally as weird, but it does more damage. I'm gonna put it in the B tier. Renala's Twin Moons. This is a very fun spell to cast. You shoot down 2 moons into the ground and you follow it up with a slam into the ground. It does suffer the same fate as the other moon spell, where you're left vulnerable for a very long time, and it has a rather small radius, but if you can get an enemy in that radius, it is phenomenal. A tier. That concludes all of the Glintstone spells. Next on the list is going to be the Starcaller or the Gravity spells. I gotta come clean here. This is the only class I forgot to level up my staff until like halfway through. I'll let you know when I do have an upgraded staff. So if the damage seems a lot weaker, that is why. Gravity Well. This looks like your basic shooty spell, but when you hit a regular enemy with it, they get pulled towards you. Still nothing crazy. The damage is just okay, and it doesn't do anything special to the bosses. So we're gonna give it a C tier. Shatter Earth. Your staff turns into a drill that you use to slam into the ground, and if you hold down, it can slam down twice. It does some good damage and does great poise damage. I do believe this is our first spell that we actually got a poise break on Margit, so that alone, it deserves a B tier. Rock Burst. This spell conjures spikes underneath your enemy. It is very spammable, doing good damage, and you can do it from a good distance away. Very easy to chain a bunch of them together to get off a bunch of consistent damage. I do think though it is a C tier spell because it does get outclassed later. Rock Sling. When you think of gravity spells, this is probably what you're thinking of. The classic Rock Sling. You throw 3 rocks into your opponent's face, breaking their teeth and being able to do so from a good distance. It has great tracking and good damage. The only downside here is that there's like this weird range area where one of the rocks can just miss, but overall, good spell. B tier. This spell turns the end of your staff into a drill, but it does active damage as you hold it out. It can be used to slam down or just melt your opponent's health with the drill itself. The only downside here is when you use it as a drill, the hitbox is super tiny, so it misses a lot of the time, and the slam is just okay. And for that, we are going to give it a C tier. Gravity Armor. Surround your body with a gravitational field, improving physical absorption by 40%, while active enemies are less likely to to stagger you, and light attacks rebound off of your body. You move slower when this effect is active, and that is probably the only downside. It does what it sets out to do well. B tier, collapsing stars. This is gravity well on steroids. It shoots an overwhelming amount of little gravity shots at your enemy. It does good damage and solid poise. I give it an A tier. Meteorite. This spell conjures a bunch of meteorites that randomly crash down and do a bunch of damage, but that's the main problem. It's random. There's only a small amount of pattern, and it leaves you with little to no control over where it lands. It does great damage when you can get it to connect, but good luck. B tier. Now from this point on, our staff is fully upgraded. Implosion. This spell pulls your enemy closer to you, doing damage while it does. But in case of any of the bosses, it just deals some good damage if they're in the AoE. Because nothing special happens to the bosses, I'm gonna give it a C tier. Gravitational missile. You shoot out a bomb that essentially does what implosion does for you, only it does it multiple times, has a bigger radius, and does good poise damage on top of all of that. I think it's deserving of the B tier. Rock heave. This is Rock Burst turned up by 100. It takes up a really good amount of space, it looks super cool and does good damage, bonus points being able to juggle the human enemies. I think it's deserving of an A tier. Distortion Field. While in radius, all physical damage you deal is increased by 5%. Your casting speed is increased by 30 and your physical absorption is increased by 10%. A really solid buff spell. The only downside is it only lasts 20 seconds, and for that, it is getting itself a B tier. Cosmic Tunnel. Now this is a godly spell. All it does is teleport you forward. But when you're in your legacy dungeons and you don't have access to torrent, this speeds it up tenfold. A tier. Meteorite of Estelle. This is an upgraded version of the Meteorite spell. It has the same downsides of not being able to control where it goes, but I think it shoots off more meteorites and it does significantly more damage. It's just an all-around an upgrade, still the same RNG, so it's going to go in the A tier. Collapsing Nebula. This spell is so cool. It shoots off a trail of nebula stars that explode, and if the enemy is in the radius, it does a ton of damage. It also tracks the enemy very well. There are not many downsides to the spell. I will give it an A tier. Meteor Sling. This is a better version of Rock Sling, but instead of throwing rocks, you're throwing meteorites, and instead of breaking their teeth, it reconstructs their face. It has a great range, great tracking, great poise, and great damage. It has the same downside as Rock Sling, where in like that one certain like range bubble, one of the meteorites can miss. It also fires a lot quicker than the Rock Sling. I will give this an A tier. Gravity Beam. As the name states, it fires a beam of gravity at your enemy. It's spammable, it does good quick damage, it absolutely melts bosses. I think this is our first S tier of the gravity spells. Stellar Bombardment. You know how the meteorite spells have the downside of no control? Now what if all of the meteorites went exactly where you wanted them to? That is this spell. The enemies cannot avoid it. It tracks them down, it melts them into nothing but dust. You will not be able to recognize them after this. S tier. Astral Alignment. It reduces the cost of a gravity sorcery by 35%, adds additional stamina regen, lowers your absorption by 50%, and lowers all damage you deal with weapons by 30%. This is one of the trade-off spells where you get debuffed alongside the buff. They're usually really good spells when you're playing for their playstyle. They carry the late game, but because it limits your playstyle into either melee or spells, this one being spell based, I think it can't quite get that S tier. This is an A tier spell. Cherishing Fingers. This spell summons fingers around you, and if your enemy is standing in the radius, it does good damage. But because they have to be so close to you, and it's not always the easiest to get the damage off, and it's fingers, so it's kind of weird. B tier. Bleeding Microcosm. This spawns a bomb on your enemy that pulses them once before exploding. It does solid damage, it spawns on them, so if they're not moving a crazy amount, it's going to hit. It does good poise damage, and overall is a really solid spell. I'm gonna put this in the A tier. The next class on the list is Dragonkin, or your Frozen Lightning spells. Frozen Cragbolt. This is a delayed projectile that is pretty strong. You can stack them up and they shoot one after the other, as well as having the bonus effect of giving Frostbite, a pretty solid starting spell. I do think it's going to get a C tier. Cragbolt Bubbles. It shoots a bunch of small bubbles tracking down your enemy, exploding on impact. It does crazy amounts of damage for a starting spell, and it also gives them Frostbite, so I'm gonna put this in the B tier. Frozen Lightning Armament. Adds lightning damage and causes frostbite buildup, lasts for 60 seconds. This, like all other armaments, is very solid. It does what it's supposed to do well, with the added bonus of frostbite, and I think that's enough to push it up to the B tier. Cragbolt Wisp. This acts like a phalanx, but it's a bubble bomb that tracks down your foes instead of some silly swords. Real men use wisps, not swords. It does decent damage, and like most of the other spells, applies frostbite. I do think it goes in the A tier. Armor of Bubbles. You cover your body in bubbles containing frozen lightning. It grants additional stamina regen, increases physical absorption by 20%, and reduces the equip load by 20%. It lasts 3 minutes, or when you get hit 3 times. I do love how it looks. It looks like you jumped into a bubble bath with a toaster in your hands, and this is the outcome. It's supposed to be a melee-based spell, but goes away after 3 hits. I don't love that, but it does make it very unique. I'm gonna put it in the C tier. Cragbolt Trio. This is the frozen Cragbolt spell, but 3 times as powerful, shooting out 3 of them. It's a really solid spell. It doesn't do anything special, just the same guy, but times 3. B tier. Great Dragonkin Bubble. You throw big bubble go boom, and it applies frost. It's just really good, and it's a lot of fun to use. I love big bubble. A tier. Cragbolt Mine. This spell plants a mine that when activated explodes, dealing damage and frostbite. A really cool idea, and I like planting them down and baiting the bosses into them. B tier. Dragonkin Retaliation. This is basically a parry, but as a spell, and it's an interesting choice, and the timing on it is a bit weird because you don't just have the parry animation, you have the casting animation, but it does still work like a traditional parry and is very spammable. I'm not the biggest fan, but I do see why people could like this. C tier. Cragbolt Upwelling. This basically spawns a minefield at your feet and does some really good damage. It's easy to get your enemies to walk into them, and it gives frostbite. It's a really solid spell, a really cool looking spell. A tier. Underworld Bubble Shield. This is another buffing spell. You cover your body with one big bubble this time instead of a bunch of little ones. It increases all absorption by 75% and increases all lightning damage you deal by 5%, and it ends after 1 minute or after being hit once and it pops the big bubble. I don't love the fact that it's a one and done. It would be too overpowered if not, so I get it. I do think it's a B tier spell. Frozen Lightning Stake. You plant a lightning stake and it pushes out a ice lightning in a cone shape. Just look at how it melts Margit. It does really solid damage, and you can even get him when he's in the air. I do think it's a B tier spell. Great Bubble Volley. We had an army of small bubbles. We had a big bubble. Now introducing the army of big bubbles. This does a lot of damage, so if you can connect them all. They're very spaced out, so they're likely to miss, but if you can get right up to Margit like I am here, you can just absolutely delete him. A tier. Dragonkin Downpour. You summon a wisp that floats above your enemy and just showers them with ice lightning. This spell is crazy, but it's also like a throwing out a flashbang. It messes with you too, but I can't deny this thing is a beast. It does ridiculous damage. It kind of plays the game for you. S tier. Cragbolt Spear. This is one of the many throwable spear spells in the Convergence mod. This one doesn't have a lot of range like the others do, but besides that, it is a really solid spear. It has this like explosion on top of landing that makes it look insane, and I always love when spells are over the top like this. No complaints from me. A tier. Dragonkin Minefield. Okay, so this spell is meant to spread out a massive minefield to lure your enemies into dealing lots of staggered damage, but that's not how we use it around here. Instead, we plant all of the mines into one place on the ground and watch it trigger one massive explosion. Just look at this. S tier. Frozen Lightning Storm. You summon a pulse of frozen lightning around you that spreads all across the arena. It's very hard to miss with this spell. It is a visually cool spell and it does insane amounts of damage. I do think this also deserves an S tier. Cragbolt Torrent. This is like Ice Lightning Comet Azure. It's a very solid spell, but it keeps you in one place. It is an FP eater, but I do love this spin on Comet Azure. I just think it needs the same sort of setup, so it also deserves an A tier. Dragonkin Devastation. Just watch. S tier. Strength of the Underworld. Increases all weapon damage by 10%, reduces weapon stamina consumption by 20%, and increases all absorption by 20%. It reduces your total FP by 50% and reduces all spell damage by 20%. This spell is purely meant for melee players. It is a really good buff and makes you super overpowered. Most of the classes have these sort of spells where it splits you in one lane and gives you a super buff. It's exactly that, a super buff. A tier. Wisdom of the Makers. Increases total FP by 20%, adds additional FP regen of 2 per second, and increases spell damage by 10%, reduces total HP by 30%, and decreases all weapon damage you deal by 50%. Same idea as the last spell, just a super buff, but for sorcerers instead. A tier. That concludes the Ice Lightning spells. Next up is the Magma spells. Starting it off with Lava Dart. This is your classic shooty spell with a twist. Instead of just doing straight up damage, it also has the benefit of leaving a pool of lava underneath the enemy, doing nice little chip damage. It absolutely melts and has no business being this good for a starter spell. I think we're gonna be ambitious and put it in the B tier. Magma Shot. This is the bigger version of Magma Dart. You can charge it to deal more damage and leave a bigger pool of lava underneath the enemy. The shot overall does a lot more damage and is a really good starter spell. I'm gonna put this in the A tier. Molten Stride. This is a very unique spell. You don't shoot anything off. You just spew magma from your little piggies, and wherever you walk leaves a trail of lava. It does some okay damage, and I like being able to draw on the floor with it, but you gotta get right up close to your enemy to draw around him to do any damage, and the lava doesn't stay for a long enough time for me to draw a pretty picture, so C tier. Burning Rancor. This spell shoots off a bunch of fire skulls. It tracks very well, circling your foe until it hits them. It does some good damage and not much to complain about. You can either fire it off immediately or you can charge it. I think this goes in the B tier. Familial Consumption. Restore HP, FP, and SP upon defeating enemies. Also, when an enemy dies, you gain a 10% additional fire damage for 30 seconds, lasting 3 minutes long. This spell is very cool, but you need to kill other enemies, so it's not applicable for most bosses and is only really good for normal enemies, which I don't fight many of. So, C tier. Lava Spray. This spell shoots a line of magma at the foe, leaving a pool on the ground. It's a good throwable magma spell, but doesn't do much that the other magma spells don't already do. I'm just gonna slot this into the B tier. Magma Breath. You get a magma worm head to use Magma Shot. I love the idea of using the magma worm head. It does some good damage, has some decent range. All of these magma spells are pretty damn good, but pretty repetitive. B tier. Roiling Magma. You throw out a magma bomb that explodes into a flurry of little magma puddles. If you charge it, it throws 3, which makes it a lot better. The direct damage is just okay. The explosion does a bit more, but I overall find this spell very underwhelming. It looks a lot better than it is, and the only time this spell is good when you don't use it how it's supposed to, and you just shoot all 3 for a direct hit, and that does some really solid damage. B tier. Gelmer's Fury. You spew magma out of your staff, you hold to extend how long it goes for, and it can go for a good amount of time. This has the obvious downside of being stuck in one place for a good portion of time, but that being said, it absolutely melts bosses. A tier. Blasphemer's Outrage. It's a buff that increases all weapon damage you deal by 10% and reduces weapon stamina cost by 25%, while also lowering defenses by 20%. It lasts for 2 minutes. Sure, it's good for the weapon damage, but then it lowers your defense by 20%, and you hate to see that on a melee-based spell. I'm gonna give this a B tier. Lava Pool. A pool of lava bursts out of your body. It's just like me after eating some spicy Taco Bell. The pool of lava is large and sticks around for a very large time. The initial damage is good, and the magma is always going to be a solid source of damage. A tier. Theodorix's Magma, where the magma breath shot out a magma shot, this shoots out a lava pool. It's just a direct upgrade. A tier. Rykard's Rancor. The better version of Burning Rancor. This is the version that Rykard uses in his phase 1. It flies around your opponent and just leaves a trail of explosions. And the fact that you can have multiple of these on the go just makes it so it does an overwhelming amount of damage and destroys everything in its path. A tier. Pyroclasm. Create a lava landslide, something straight out of a volcano. It has a large cone-shaped radius. It does a large amount of damage. It looks insane. There's not much to dislike about this spell. It does take quite a bit of FP, but I do think it is well worth it. A tier. Lava Blast. It shoots a blast of lava out of your staff. You can hold onto it like Comet Azure, and it just melts everything in your path. This does lock you into place like the others, but it also leaves a puddle of magma at their feet, a very solid Comet Azure clone. A tier. Lava Bomb. This is essentially a magma mortar. It shoots up in the sky and lands directly on Margit's head. It does a good amount of damage, but the enemy can't be too close or else it will not hit. And for that, B tier. Vortex of Egle. Now this is the phase 2 attack of Rykard, where it rains down skulls upon your opponents. It summons a portal from hell where all of the Rankards hunt your enemies. It's such a spectacle of a spell. It really does play the game for you. S tier. Magma Missile. It shoots out a missile that does some good damage and also explodes magma behind the boss. Because it explodes behind, it's not as effective as it could be. Maybe it's just like a skill issue on my end, but I'm gonna give it a B tier. Inferno. This is just one of those spells you gotta see in action. S tier. Embrace the Devourer. Gain an effect that adds 1% additional HP, FP, and SP, and 1% additional damage every time an enemy dies, and it stacks up to 10 times. Just like the other buffs that require killing other enemies, it's really good, but it makes me go to my way to kill enemies I usually wouldn't. It's hard to deny that this spell isn't legendary. I'm gonna give it A tier. Our next category is the air spells. Storm Gust. This is your normal shooty spell. It shoots air at your foe, it does some good damage, and for bonus points it does some good poise, but you've seen enough of these already. There's a basic spell. C tier. Rebuff. Conjure a gust of wind out of your body, dealing small amounts of damage and knocking back normal enemies. I mean, it's cool, but like, really? F tier. Storm Armament. Applies wind to your weapon, which I believe is just physical damage, so it gives you a good amount of extra damage but doesn't do anything special. C tier. Air Tags. It's a debuff you cast on your enemy. It is considered a curse. You will see a ton of them throughout this whole video, but it deals continuous damage over a short period of time. In this case, it's 1 minute. And when they are affected with it, they deal 25% less damage and it lowers their ability to block. I am a sucker for these curses. They are a really cool way to do a debuff. I do think this goes in the B tier. Twister. This is basically Godric's move in phase 1 where he fires off wind at you. That's a cool spell. It works. It looks good, but it doesn't do a whole lot of damage. C tier. Storm Arc. Another arc spell. This one acts differently than the first one though. It fires a lot quicker. It gets bigger over time, but you can really rapid fire it. It cuts through the air. It looks super cool, slices through your opponents, and does a lot better than I would have expected. So I'm going to put it in the B tier. Whirlwind. You summon a twister on yourself, doing some damage to anyone within it. It does have a smaller radius. It does look a lot cooler than it actually is. I know it's super effective if you can get the enemy to stay in it for the whole time, but that is very unlikely to happen unless their poise is broken, and for that I'm going to give it a B tier. Storm Call. This conjures underneath your enemy, shooting wind up at them, doing a good amount of damage, but it does have a very small radius, so I do think it is deserving of a B tier. Cloud Form. This is a nifty spell. When you have it active, you are able to sprint while casting. The only downside here is when you're locked on, that doesn't really matter matter. Like if you're running around trying to cast, it's gonna go whichever direction you're looking. So you need to like manually like stop and like aim your character towards the enemy while you cast, or else you're not hitting them. But aside from that one downside, this spell is so much fun, and it makes casting spells a lot more high octane. Like you're just super fast paced. You become untouchable. I think it's an A tier spell. Storm Strike. This is a crossbreed of Storm Gust and Storm Call, where you shoot off a regular looking wind shot, but it also conjures a little twister below them. You can quick cast it or charge it up, and it has some very solid damage. I do think it's deserving of the B tier. Gale Blast. You conjure a gust of wind that keeps on firing for you. You can summon 2 at the same time and watch them just melt HP. Just look at them go. They even track Margit when he is jumping. A tier. Gathering Storm. It's another buff spell. Each storm spell you casts increases the damage of the next storm spell by 2%, and the FP cost of that spell by 4%. It stacks multiple times for its duration, but it only lasts for 30 seconds. I like stack spells, I like air spells, but I'll give this one a B tier. Cyclone. You cast a very short cyclone, and it does everything you wanted Whirlwind to do, but better. A much larger radius, constant damage, good poise damage. This thing has it all. It basically fights for you. It's just not strong enough to be an S tier, so it's going in A tier. Dematerialize. A defensive buff. It makes your stamina cost on attacks decreased by 25%, FP sorceries cost decreased by 15%, and your physical absorption to be increased by 15%. It lasts for 2 minutes. I do think this is a really good spell. I rate it very highly, and also look, you're transparent. What isn't there to love? A tier. Suffocate. This is an upgrade of the air tax. Same sort of idea. It launches a curse at the enemy, dealing continuous damage, only this time enemies deal 15% less damage. It lowers their ability to block and lowers their posture. I do think the lowering of the posture saves this one, as it is kind of like samey with the other buff to air tax, but it lasts 80 seconds. I think it's still a B tier spell. Storm Shatter. This does low damage, but it does something even better than damage. It destroys their poise. It only takes 3 casts on Margit here to get a poise break consistently. Every 3rd shot, he's taken a knee. This is a huge setup spell and is very overpowered from many other things, but it can't do much on its own, so I'm gonna put it in the B tier. Tornado. If you thought the Cyclone was good, here is a full-on tornado. It does an even better job at melting bosses. S tier. Storm Color's Sublimity. Increases physical weapon damage by 15%, increases all absorption by 15%, lowers total stamina by 20%, lowers total FP by 40%, but it removes your passive FP recovery, and instead each melee attack restores 2 FP on hit. I will put it in the A tier. Tempest Form. Increases all physical damage you do by 10%, increases spell casting speed by 70, causes immunity to rot, poison, frostbite, bleed, and death blight, but it lowers your total HP by 40% and total stamina by 20%. I do think the debuff on this spell doesn't cost too much, because if you're going to keep a good distance away, I do think the casting speed is a huge carry here. I do think this is an S tier spell. Divine Beast Tornado. I've never actually seen this spell in action before and was pleasantly surprised. You stomp down and then it sends off its own tornado at the foe. I had a lot of fun with this. It looks good, it does good damage, good job FromSoft. A tier. The next category is the spooky night spells. Shadow Bait. You throw this to lure enemies out of their position. I'm not a fan and have never actually found a good use case for this, so for that it is going in the F tier. Night Shard. A very good starting spell. It shoots quickly, does good damage, and has never let me down. It's a spell you'll use for the first portion of your playthrough, so I'm gonna give it a C tier. Quicksilver Affliction. This is another curse spell. It does damage slowly over 10 seconds, doesn't give any other debuffs, and doesn't do enough damage on its own. I really do think this is another F tier spell. Night Maiden's Mist. This might be controversial, but I hate the mist spells. They're one-trick ponies all the way. You have to either use them on enemies that aren't looking, or like really massive enemies that are gonna sit still for a long period of time, which is like 2% of total enemies, so I really do think this is an F tier spell. Darkness. This summon summons a pit of darkness so you can backstab your enemies. I think I might just be an Assassin's hater at this point. I will never use this spell. I'm not trying to roleplay Assassin's Creed. I'm trying to kill bosses. F tier. Unseen Blade makes your blade invisible, which is cool, and it adds magic damage to your weapon. Nothing special. Another armament spell. C tier. Assassin's Approach silences footsteps of the caster, additionally reduces fall damage. It removes the sound of fall damage, increases crit damage by 20%. The crit damage is really good, and my ear holes love that there is no footstep noises. B tier. Ambush Shard. This is a fun spell that attacks from behind. It is not much different than Night Shard, but it's cool that you can give them back shots. It also doesn't have great range, but it's still solid nonetheless. It will also go in C tier. Night Stars. Finally something I can sink my teeth into. It fires off multiple Night Shards and just eats up the HP bar. I like how quick it casts. I like the multiple hits, and this one carried me through the mid game, so I'm gonna give it a B tier. Curse of Midnight. Another curse spell, but this one lowers the target's absorption to magic damage by 10%. On top of slowly draining their HP over 25 seconds, it's a curse, a good one at that, so I'm gonna put this into the B tier. Star Swarm. This is a mix of Night Shards and the Rancor. The Rancor in the aspect of where it doesn't stop after one hit, it keeps looping until it fades into nothingness. This spell is a real eater. You can cast it multiple times and just watch them stack up and eat that HP bar. A tier. Quicksilver Shard. This is Ambush Shard, but it adds Quicksilver Poison. The Shard does good damage on its own. It's still nothing has changed about that, and the poison is a very good addition to what was already an okay spell. B tier. Eternal Darkness. This is just another version of Thop's Barrier, but this time instead of redirecting the spell, the black hole is supposed to eat the spells. It also doesn't really work on like anything. I used it on this fight for a while before I could get like one spell to go into it. F tier. Night Maiden's Fog. This is just an upgraded version of the Mist, but upgrading garbage is still garbage. It just has a bigger radius, still has very low damage. C tier. Night Comet. This guy has a reputation for being goated in regular playthroughs. It's a spell that you can charge and do unreasonable amounts of damage with, and I'm happy to say Goat still got it. He keeps up his reputation within the convergence mod. Look at him go. A tier. Unseen Form. This is a defensive enchantment. It makes the user semi-invisible. Also works on horseback. I understand why this is here. Again, just not for me personally. I don't think I will ever use it. F tier. Stars of Ruin. This puts the already really good Star Swarm to shame. It shoots out rapid stars that you can charge to raise potency on, and just look at them go. They do it like nobody else can. So crisp, so clean, so good. S tier. Quicksilver Comet. This is Night Comet, but with the addition of Quicksilver Poison. Although the poison isn't that great, it just makes what was already a great spell even better. S tier. Founding Rain of Stars. Summons a rain of stars above you that shoots down comets. My only complaint here is wishing the radius was a bit bigger. That being said, it's still pretty big and it does a lot of damage. Just look at it melt. S tier. Oath of Darkness increases all weapon damage by 10%, increases crits by 20%, increases absorption by 10%, drastically lowers equip load, silences footsteps, and increases stamina regen, but lowers your total FP by 75%. A very legendary melee spell. A tier. Attune to the Black Moon. Increases the FP regen by 5 per second, adds 20 HP regen per second, lowers the FP cost of sorceries by 50%, and makes the caster less likely to stagger. Sounds amazing, right? Wrong. All damage you do is reduced by 75%. This spell is such a tease. It's like that girl that has it all, but she's the most toxic thing you've ever seen. C tier. Next up is the Necromancer class. Now for this class, I do have some summons in use because that is like the main point of this class. So starting off is Fia's Mist. Out of the family of weak spells, we do have a strong soldier. It does a lot more damage than the Quicksilver Mist, and it applies Deathblight, which in the Convergence mod gives them a status resistance reduction and an absorption reduction. It can also be applied onto everyone, so it's a solid start. C tier. Tibia's Summons. They basically took the Rose's Axe Ash of War and shoved it into a spell. That being said, they chose the right Ash of War to copy because this thing does damage. and can easily carry you throughout your fight. I do think it is a B tier spell. Blighted Armament. This applies Holy and Deathblight to your weapon. It's okay. It does what it's advertised to do. I still think it is a C tier spell. Tibia's Conversion. You can recruit enemies by casting this onto the undead, allowing them to fight for you. It's basically like a Pokeball for the undead, and I love this. B tier. Rancor Call. Summons the Rancor Call skulls to chase down enemies. Our first shooty spell of the class, and it's a good one. Just look at it go. B tier. Lingering Blight. Another curse. This one applies a constant buildup of Deathblight for 30 seconds. C tier. Rally the Legion. This increases the damage of all summons and allies by 10% and increases their defense by 15% on top of adding HP recovery to all summons and allies. For a summons based class, it's such a good buff, especially for the early game. B tier. Accursed Binding. So in the convergence mod, when you summon, you get debuffed, and it scales with what you summon. The lowest deduction being like minus 3% to HP, FP, and stamina, which isn't so bad. You can deal with 3% less, but when you use the best summons in the game, all of a sudden it's minus 40% of your HP, FP, and stamina. And this spell removes all of those debuffs. And for this class, it's a godsend. A tier. Ancient Death Rancor. This is a better version of Rancor Call, shooting out more skulls, and with it dealing even more damage. This is the spell that carries most of your playthrough. A tier. Sacrifice. So you know about those summons. Well, we can just sort of sacrifice them and watch them go boom to do some okay damage. I mean, yes, I just spent my whole time blowing up Alexander. I only feel a little bad. I really liked watching the jar shards just like go everywhere. C tier. Curse of Putrefaction. The upgraded curse, it lowers absorption to holy damage by 10% and deals holy damage over time, but it only lasts 20 seconds. It's a much better curse. I'm gonna slide it into B tier. We could argue C tier here, but I'm gonna keep it in B. Rancor Bolt. This shoots a fast bolt that can cause frostbite, and you can really rapid fire this thing to do a ton of really fast damage. I do think this is just below the Ancient Death Rancor, so we're gonna keep it in the B tier. Ghost Flame Cannon. This spell is godly. You shoot a massive cannon of Ghost Flame at the opponent, causing a huge explosion as well as a spread of Ghost Flame around the arena. This also has the benefit of giving frostbite. It does take a lot of time to charge up, but overall I do think it's better than Rancor Bolt, so we're gonna give it an A tier. Wave of Corruption. This shoots out a wave of death at your enemies, causing holy damage and a buildup of Deathblight. It's basically just a really big mist. Sure, it covers more area, but I can't give it anything higher than a C. Rancor Storm. An even better version of Ancient Death Rancor. This thing shoots off so many skulls and it comes with so much damage. Just watch this thing. S tier. Soul Steal. This is a very unique spell. It violently rips an enemy's soul from their body as a projectile that moves towards the caster, which causes the enemy to become stunned, which sounds like something great, right? Well, sort of. When this happens, you are also drained of all of your stamina and FP, so you both become useless, which sounds pointless, but because this class relies heavily on summons, they can then carry you through the fight while you sacrifice your resources for poise breaks. A tier. Ghost Flame Embrace. This applies Ghost Flame to your body and to your summons, so whenever you get near an enemy, they are just taking constant chip damage. This is mainly to make your summon stronger, but it's just a bit of additional damage with some frost procs, so I'm only gonna give it a B tier. Ritual of Ghost Flame. You slam your staff down and raise Ghost Flame upon the world, causing a massive explosion and summoning Ghost Flame absolutely everywhere, dealing maximum damage. S tier. Godwin's Vengeance. Creates an aura of Deathblight around the player, dealing holy damage and causing Deathblight buildup to nearby enemies. On top of that, it increases all weapon damage by 10% and all absorption by 20%, but reduces your total FP by 75%. With all legendary enchantments, it never expires, so it's a very, very good melee spell. I'm not super high on the Deathblight effect, but I still think this deserves an A tier. Phoenix of Death increases the damage of all death sorceries by 10%, grants 3 FP regen per second, but decreases all absorption by 30%. For a legendary spell, it's just okay. I'm gonna give it a B tier. Mass of Putrescence. This is the spell where you throw a big glob of putrescence onto your foes. It has a little Ghost Flame-esque like fire effect to follow it up with. This spell is weird because you don't want to lock on if you want it to work the best, but overall it's a good spell. It's just a little wonky. I'm gonna put it in the B tier. Vortex of Putrescence. This is the one where you shoot it on the outside and it spreads fire to running towards you. So as long as the enemy is in the radius, they're getting hit, and it has a very large radius, so I'm gonna put it A tier. Because we've been cosplaying Frost with 2 classes so far, it's time for the real deal, the Frost spells or the Ice spells. Freezing Mist, unfortunately. It does give Frostbite and it does chip away. I think it's on par, if not a little better than the last one. I think we're gonna have to give it a C tier. Ice Dart. The first shooty spell of the class, it shoots a dart of ice that can't give Frostbite. It just does okay damage, and because of that, it's going into the C tier. Frozen Armament. Enchants your weapon with Frost, doing extra magic damage. These always just end up getting the job done. I think I'm going to put this into C tier. Ice Crag Arrow. This is like the starting spell, except it can give Frostbite. Good damage, good status effect, solid spell, nothing special. B tier. Brenna's Barrier. Oh boy, another barrier spell. This one has the addition of pushing enemies away. Wow. It does a small amount of damage as well, but that doesn't save it from how truly useless it is. F tier. Frozen Spikes. Slam your staff into the ground, creating a cone of ice spikes. Ice spikes have always been good at dealing solid damage, giving Frost, and carrying me through playthroughs. B tier. Armor of Rime. Increases all absorption by 15%, grants immunity to Frostbite, and causes frost buildup to all nearby enemies. This is a solid defensive spell. It's nice to have on, and it builds up Frostbite quickly for enemies, a lot quicker than you would expect. B tier. Ice Crag Burst. This is a rare good burst spell, where you hip thrust and make the enemies freeze. You can also charge it for a good chunk of damage, but I was more of a quick releaser, and I would just spam it until they died. I'm gonna put into the B tier. Dragon Ice, another one of the Dragon Breath spells. It does good damage, gives Frostbite, but it locks you in place. It does nothing special, nothing out of the ordinary, so I'm just gonna slap it into the B tier. We've seen enough of these spells already. Ice Shards. It shoots shards of ice into the face of your foes. That's going to hurt you no matter how strong you are. When you're right up close, it hits like a shotgun, and it gets a deserved A tier. A Duelist Moonblade. This has the Moonlight Greatsword Ash of War, but the projectile gives Frostbite. It looks cool, it doesn't really miss, and can shoot from a good distance away, does solid damage. This is another A tier spell. Frozen Phalanx. Phalanx got an upgrade. Dealing frost damage, they are really good, but they are hard to look at. Just look at this screen. Look how much of the screen they take up with the trail. If you're gonna be moving with these, you're gonna have a hard time seeing, but they're really good damage-wise and give Frost. I think we're gonna give these an A tier. Borealis's Mist. Boo is what I would think at first, because I hear the word mist and I get triggered like I was in the Stephen King book. Alas, this is nothing more than an upgraded version of the dragon spell. A tier. Ice Crag Spear. This is an even better version of the Ice Crag Arrow. It does more damage, you can charge it for more damage, and it does a cool explosion when it lands. It can apply Frostbite, and it was my late game go-to spell. A tier. Ronnie's Dark Moon. I love the moon spells. This one functions just like the first one. Curl up into a moon, shoot it off, and it does great damage. Has a good tracking, but this one gives Frostbite instead of the debuffs, which is a debuff in itself, so we're gonna give it an A tier. Avalanche. It's exactly what you would expect. It's an avalanche and basically just a variation of the Pyroclasm spell we saw earlier, but instead of the outside of a volcano being tossed at the enemy. It's an avalanche off of a snowy mountain. It looks really cool. I love all the flying rocks. It does good damage. You can charge it, but it doesn't give frostbite. B tier. Whiteout. This spell is so cool. It literally causes a whiteout, making it so you can't see anything when it's first casted, dealing a constant damage to your enemy. And as you can see here, it's a good amount of damage. It also applies frostbite, and you don't have to do much when this is active besides survive. I don't like that the whiteout fades as quickly as it does. I love the feeling of fighting in the blizzard, and the fact that it fades away quickly does take a bit from me, but it's still good. I understand why it goes away, because visually for some people it's like I don't like it, but for me I love it. I'm just gonna give it an A tier. Zamor Ice Storm. This summons a freezing tornado on your foe, dealing a ton of damage and building up frostbite the whole time. It visually looks sick and does a lot of damage. Look at it shred. Nothing to complain about here. An S tier spell. Snow Witch's Cunning. This class only has one legendary enchantment. It grants 5 FP recovery per second, increases spell casting speed by 40, and increases stamina recovery, but it also lowers the total HP by 35%, an honest buff to spells, and it doesn't give a ton of debuffs. I think it's a fair trade, and on top of that, it looks cool. So we're going to go with A tier. Onto the other broken status effect, Bleed, starting with the Bloodthorns or the Briar spells. Body of Briar. This is a buff, but while it is active, it causes bleed buildup on you. It covers you in bloody thorns, although when you look at your character, he just has Rudolph's red nose light stuck to permanently on. It increases your physical absorption by 15%. It also causes dodge rolls to deal damage to nearby enemies. It lasts 1 minute, and essentially it's the cactus spell before the cactus spell was in the game. I do love me some cacti, so we're gonna put it in the B tier. Briar Wrapped Armament. This adds bleed buildup to your attack. It has a cool looking effect on the weapon, but it's just another armament. C tier. Briars of Sin. This is the classic Briar spell. You conjure Bloodthorns around yourself, and the more you chain it, the more they twist and extend around you. They do really solid damage. The only downside is needing to hold hands with Margit to get the damage off, but it's a really good starting spell, so I'm gonna give it a B tier. Close Wound. Restores HP and alleviates bleed buildup. You charge to cast multiple times, and because everything in this class builds up bleed, this is a handy spell to keep on deck. Although when I played this class, I think I used it a total of 2 times. I know it's good, I just never found enough value to keep it on the roster, so I'm gonna put it C tier. Strangling Briars. This is the first curse spell of this class. The description for this one is brutal. Conjure thorny vines that bind around the throat of your enemies, causing continuous damage and bleed buildup. It lasts for 30 seconds. Low damage, but the bleed will never not be good, and they look like they got chicken pox all over their body. C tier. Thorn Burst. This is a super fun spell that the Albinarics in the Mogwin Palace use when they burst spikes out of their body. Now we get to do that. It does have a small radius, but it is quick cast, so you can find time to get it off during an enemy's combo. Bleed is always nice, but I don't think it can carry this spell out of the C tier. It's just underwhelming. Briars of Punishment. Instead of the spell surrounding you, it spawns under the enemy. It acts the same way in the fact that it can be chained together with itself, and I don't think it surpasses Briars of Sin. I think it's on par. The range is nice, but I'm gonna give it a B tier. Telekinetic Shell. Conjure a crimson force field around you, dealing damage and knocking back enemies that touch it. It lasts for 20 seconds. In theory, these knockback spells are godly, but they're just so limited on who they can knock back, and I'm not interacting with the residents of the land between like that, so I really don't have a good use for it. The only plus side for this one is it does a lot more damage than the others, so I'm gonna give it a C tier. Ritual of Desecration. It's an offensive enchantment. This spell costs 50% of your HP. It increases the damage of your sorceries by 10% and grants 2 HP and 2 FP recovery per second, and it lasts for 1 minute. 50% of your HP is a steep price to pay, but I do think it's worth it. I'm gonna say B tier. Red Glintstone Razor. This is, as the name suggests, it's the Carrion Slicer, but red, which isn't a knock whatsoever. I love that spell, and it giving bleed is such a good addition, but you do have to be right up in there for it to work out, but you cast so fast that the DPS is really good. I do think it is a B tier spell. Sadistic Glee. This spell costs 20% 10% of your HP and drains all of your FP. It increases weapon damage by 5% and causes all successful weapon hits on enemies to restore HP. It lasts for 1 minute, and this is clearly a melee focused spell, but I do think giving the Millennia heal on hit is worth it. B tier. Crimson Rose. This shoots out the bloody vines all around you, almost like a really big fort surrounding you. It does damage spreading out, and it does big damage conjuring the outer spikes. It's rare to get one of the casts to hit multiple times, but when it does, it feels like you're the best in the world. Even if it only hits once, it has good damage and can cause bleed, and because of the potential to hit multiple times, I think I'm gonna put it in A tier. Blood Star. Conjure a red floating orb above your head that provides light, increasing all physical damage you deal by 5% and grants 2 HP recovery per second. It never expires. This is easy loot, no drawbacks, adds vision, heals you, and increases your physical damage. B tier. Telekinetic Assault. This is the bell-bearing hunter spell. You get to conjure your own sword, flick it back and forth on your enemy, making it impossible to dodge. It does so much damage that they die and lose all of their runes, and their Night Rain team yells at the— sorry, I was speaking from experience. The spell, it's a lot harder to control than Briar makes it look like he's just like a god, I guess. It's awkward and it misses bosses unless you're like right inside of them when it happens. It takes far too long to work out right. I do think it's a B tier spell. Red Glintstone Shard. I love that this is a thing they do. They take existing spells, they dump them in red 40, and they're like, look at this. I mean, Glintstone Shards is already a great shotgun spell. Adding bleed makes it even better. I do think this is an A tier spell. Yokade's Sap. This conjures a big bleed hammer you can bonk your foes on the head with. It looks like it would be good to use in Whack-A-Mole. It hits hard. You can chain it twice. It causes bleed and is effective. You don't even need to connect directly because it has a bit of a radius. It also does good poise damage, but with it being so slow to get off and you having to be like really close for it to work out, I don't think I can give it higher than a B. Blood Comet. You know what's going on with this at this point. Here is the footage of it being good. It is Comet, it is red, it is bleed, it is good, it is S tier. Crimson Great Blade. This does what Moonlight Greatsword does, but if it was all bloody. It has great range, and it does more damage than it has any reason to be doing. It can fire fast, it can hit twice in one swing if you're lucky, and it causes bleed. S tier. Aberrant Ascension. Increases damage of sorceries by 10%, increases casting speed by 40, grants immunity to bleed, but also lowers the absorption of all of your damage by 20%, lowers your stamina by 20%. I do think this is a fine trade-off because when you're focusing on spells, these two things aren't super important. The bleed immunity can come in clutch, so I do think this is an A tier spell. Blood Revelry. When blood loss occurs in the vicinity, you gain an effect for 10 seconds. It increases all physical damage you do by 10%. It grants 25 HP recovery per second, 5 FP recovery per second, 5 stamina recovery per second. It doesn't stack, but you are getting bleed procs all of the time with no drawbacks. This is an S tier buff. Mantle of Thorns covers the caster in thorns, increasing poise and physical absorption by 20% and non-physical by 10%. Also, when you roll, you deal damage. I can't hate on the cactus spell. Sure, you don't do much damage, but it's literally me. B tier. Impenetrable Thorns. This is so much better than I would have ever expected. Just look at how insane this is. This is like the ranged flower attack that he uses on you when you enter his arena, and it's just as strong as when it hits you. Like usually when you get like a boss's spell, it's usually like worse than when they used it on you. But in this case, I think it's better. Next up is fire damage. Fire in the convergence was buffed as it now gives the immolation effect. This effect sort of acts like a smaller version of Black Flame, where when you cast a spell, they burn for a little bit afterwards, taking residual damage. Catch Flame. A quick burst of fire damage, very spammable, but ends up getting outclassed later by its older brother. It's a nice starting spell. The only real downside is having to hug the boss to do any sorts of damage. It is really good. B tier. Flame Sling. This is the classic fireball spell. You throw your fireball, it does good damage, it gives them burn damage, and on top of that, you can charge it to make it better. It does get outclassed later, but it's a very solid starter. I'm gonna slap it in the C tier. Flame Whirl. This is a fun one. You hold it and make a little swirl with fire in the air. It doesn't have a whole lot of range. Overall, it does okay damage, but it really shines if you can get the whole thing onto the enemy. If you can get close enough and hold on to it, it's very good, but because that scenario doesn't happen as much as you would like, and it being short and takes a while to cast fully, I do think it is another C tier spell. Flaming Armament enchants your weapon with fire and adds the immolation effect. I do think this is almost on par with Black Flame, so I'm gonna put it in the B tier. Giant's Flame Protection increases fire and physical damage absorption by 20% and all other absorption by 10%. Lasts 90 seconds. I can't see a scenario where this isn't just great. A tier. Purging Flames. This purges you of your status effect. Yeah, it does what it says it does. How good is that really? Not the greatest. All I've ever really needed this for was the Lake of Rot. We'll give it a C tier. Flame Surge. You hold out your hand and watch the world burn as you spew out a constant flow of fire. It doesn't have the best range, but it makes up for it with the damage. It's just a constant flow of it. I really like the overall fire buff in the mod, and maybe that's swaying my vote with some of these, but I'm gonna give it a B tier. Great Flame. This is Catch Flame's bigger brother. It sure does more damage. It is also spammable. This is a spell that just rips through the HP bar, and I love it. So we're gonna put it into the A tier. Dragonfire. The one with actual fire. This spell does not gain the burn effect, which in this class just makes it okay. But in terms of overall spells, it's not going to be bad. It can just be so much better. So we're gonna put it in the B tier. Fire's Deadly Sin. You go to the ground and set yourself ablaze, causing an explosion of flames, and when you get up, you're on fire, which then does damage to anyone who comes near you. The initial burst does some nice damage, but the fire afterwards is underwhelming. I think it keeps you in place for too long. It doesn't do enough damage in comparison to the others, and although it's very fun, it's just lacking. So I'm gonna put it in the C tier. Flame Scatter. You throw a bunch of smaller fireballs. You can charge it to shoot bigger ones, and I believe more fireballs. This has the downsides of being a shotgun-esque spell, but it doesn't have the like shotgun effect where the more pellets hit, the more damage you do. This is a one and done. It's very spammable. It's a solid damage dealer. B tier. The Flame of the Fell God. I've always enjoyed this spell. You spawn in a massive fireball that slowly floats towards your enemy, and when it gets in range, it explodes, leaving a big mess of fire all over the floor. It does do some good damage. The fire on the floor shreds, and the only downside is the potential of it missing. Your enemy is too quick, so I'm going to give it A tier. Great Flame Sling. This is Flame Sling's older, stronger, buffer cousin. An upgrade in all senses. You throw it farther, it can charge to make a massive ball of flame. The damage itself in comparison to everything else is underwhelming, but it's going to be your main shooter. I'm going to put it as B tier. Aghiel's Flame. The truest form of the fire breaths. The one thing I forgot to mention with these tier 2 dragon breath spells that applies to all of them is you can cast these while on horseback and while in the air. It still doesn't do the immolation burn effect, but it does a lot of damage. You have good control with it, has good range, it looks cool. A tier. Stoke the Flames. Increases all fire damage you deal by 10%, reduces the stamina cost of attacks by 20%, and reduces the cost of incantations by 20%. It lasts for 3 minutes. It's just like Giant's Flame Protection, where it's never going to be bad, it's just a good buff. A tier. Flame Pillars. You get down on your hands and knees and summon pillars of flames all around your body. A very cool looking spell, but more importantly, just look at how much damage this spell does. God dang, this gets an A tier. Flame Strike. With this one, you summon a burst of flame underneath your foe. It works good from a distance away, and it looks very cool. You can chain it together with itself. It does have that issue where if they get too close, it won't work, but just look at this puppy shred. A tier. Fell Missile. You conjure a missile from your hands. Let me say that again. You summon a freaking missile from your hands. It's awesome. S tier. Incinerate. You remember that cute little flame whirl? yeah, turn it up by 1000. Just look at how extra this is. It's not held back by range. It just incinerates everything in its path. It has a well-deserved name. This is another favorite of mine for the late game spells. I'm going to give this an S tier. Anger of the Fell God. If you haven't seen this spell in action, you're in for a treat. And if you have, you just know how good it is. S tier. Cyclopean Prophecy increases all fire damage by 10%, increases total stamina and total FP by 25%, but this effect always deals fire damage to you and enemies near you. I honestly don't think the burning brings this spell down by much. I mean, just look how slow that damage is to yourself. It could cost you in the long run if you like make a crucial mistake, but it's an S tier buff. Fire Serpent. The Fire Serpent is a delayed orb. You shoot it out, it waits a second before it tracks down the target, then it goes after them. It does good damage, it hunts them down nicely, but it also doesn't have the immolation effect. B tier. Mesmer's Orb. This is the Mesmer attack. You conjure an orb under your feet and ride it down to the ground, slamming into your enemy, dealing a ton of damage. If left uninterrupted, it will explode on your enemy, dealing a bunch more damage. It's a very strong spell with the major downside of you can just get hit out of it. Like if you're up in the air and you get smacked, you're just gonna fall down. It only deserves A tier. Rain of Fire. You summon a fiery rain that just deletes the enemy. Just watch what it does to Mr. Market. It absolutely owns that fraud. S tier. Serpent Flame Surge. This spell plays the game for you. What more needs to be said? You hold down the shoot button, you win. S tier. Abyssal Flame Dance. This is the move Mesmer does when he wants you to back up. It's very strong, it can be chained with itself, and it gives a nice little 1-2 combo. It does good damage. It's not great. It is deserving of a B tier. Next up is either the most overpowered class or the worst class depending on who you're up against. Holy Rejection. This spell purely pushes enemies away. That's its whole use case. It just pushes them back. F tier. Rune Shards. You throw out a bunch of shards that stick to the enemy or the terrain around it, and after a couple of seconds the rune shards explode. It is a very unique spell. The explosions are a little lackluster, but that is to be expected with a starting spell. I think it is deserving of a C tier. Sacred Ground. The T-Pose spell. It marks an area below your feet, dealing damage to the enemies around you, dealing extra damage to undead enemies, but it also heals friendly units 5% of their HP per second, as well as buffing their absorptions by 5%. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I played through this mod many of times, and I did not remember that it did all of that. I just remember that it had a big radius and that it was fun to T-Pose. A really good starting spell. B tier. Blessing of Grace, our first buff of the holy spell, the first of many I might add. It grants 7 HP recovery per second and increases max equip load by 20%. This is a solid spell that never expires, and it's just an okay buff. B tier. Urgent Heal. This is your basic run-of-the-mill healing spell. This one is the lowest on the totem pole, only healing, in quotes, small amount of HP. I think it might scale with your faith because look at that. Maybe it's a percentage thing. I'm not too sure. It's nothing I would use over a flask, but it's some good healing, so I'm gonna give it a C tier. Discus of Light. You toss a holy frisbee that deals damage going into your enemy and damage coming back out. For a starting spell, it is very strong. I am a frisbee enjoyer, so I'm going to put it in the B tier. Outer's Blade. This enchants your weapon with holy. It's good at what it does. It looks cool, but doesn't have any additional effects like some of the other armaments, so I'm going to give it a C tier. Immutable Shield. Be so for real. Another shield spell. This one somehow is worse than the other one. Your shield has to be in your left hand for some reason. It gives a damage negation to elemental damage, helps with status buildup. What? Throw it in the dumpster. I'm sure someone's found some like godly use case for this, but it's just not for me. Just click the dang dodge button. F tier. Laws of Regression. This just clears status effects. Like, cool, you do your job, but I only ever have one use case of this, and I know I put some of the other ones in C tier, but like I'm just annoyed with them at this point, so this one is getting F. Blessing of Protection grants 25% shield stability and increases all absorption by 10%. Shield users are eating good with this class. I can see how it's good for them. The buff is nice. I read that and wanted to throw it in the trash, but I will not. This is not poop from a butt. It is just okay. C tier. Great heal. Now we up the ante with the next heal spell. It greatly heals HP. Shocker. It's better than the other one, but it gets outclassed later. I do think it is a B tier. Morgoth's Spear. Such a cool spell. You get to throw Morgoth's Spear as a spell. It has great range, good holy damage, and it's Margit's wet dream. He's stuck with his little blades. A tier. Wrath of Gold. It's rejection, but better. It actually does damage and has a use case other than shoving your enemies on the floor, but it does a considerable amount of damage, which I hate. I want to hate on it so bad, but it's actually good, so I'm going to put it in the B tier. Triple Rings of Light. This time we get 3 frisbees, and they are a lot bigger. It is better than the single disc, but doesn't add anything special to the spell. Not much needed to be changed in the first place, so I'm going to give it an A tier. Blessing of Wisdom grants 1 FP recovery per second and increases holy damage of spells by 5%. Very solid, nothing to complain about. It also doesn't expire, so I'm going to put it in the B tier. Lord's Heal. This is the best heal of the normal heal spells. It's the only one that I can be okay with regular usage over the flasks, because just look at how much it heals. So for that, I'm going to put it in the A tier. Law of Causality. This is the bubble that Gideon uses when you fight him, where when you hit him, he explodes and it nukes your HP. Now, in classic FromSoft fashion, it's never as good as when you do it, and this time it's actually horrible. Like, it should be so much better than it is. I get hit, it explodes, it does 70 damage. F tier. Golden Displacement. This is the holy version of the Cosmic Tunnel. It's just godly. It makes running through anywhere where you can't have torrent feel like a speed run, and this gotta be top 1 creations from the Convergence mod team. Thank you. A tier. Radagon's Rings of Light. You create a massive disc of light around yourself. It has a huge radius. It does good damage, but it keeps you in place, hitting that T-pose, making you a little vulnerable. The fact that it hits multiple times is really nice as well, though, so I'm going to put it in the A tier. Blessing of Power. Grants 8 stamina recovery and increases the holy damage of weapons by 5%. This effect never expires. This is a melee player's go-to, a solid spell with no catch. B tier. Golden Spear. Do you remember that like really cool shot of like throwing the golden spear during the Dark Souls 1 intro? Yeah, this is that, even though that one might have been lightning now that I think about it, but like still, it's super cool. It explodes when it plants on your enemies, and what more could you want? This is a godly spell. I'm gonna put this in the S tier. Elden Blade. This is the Elden Beast's holy slash attack. It doesn't have much range, but when you do use it, it's an amazing spell. I'm also gonna put this in the S tier. Elden Stars. S tier. Elden Benediction. This is going to be a mouthful. It's a very interesting legendary enchantment. It buffs all of your buffs in this class. So let's say if you were using Blessing of Grace, it would now be 15 HP recovery instead of the 7, 30% equip load instead of 20, and it has improved dodges. Blessing of Protection now gains all absorption by 25%, adds 35% shield stability, and increases poise. Blessing of Wisdom now regens 2 FP per second, increases holy spell damage by 10%, and increases casting speed by 30. Blessing of Power now grants 15% stamina, or 15 stamina recovery, increases holy weapon damage by 10%, and increases poise damage of your weapons by 10%. On top of all of that, if you don't have any of these buffs active, it will increase all of your stats by 2. This is a cool way to go about a buff, and it gives so much freedom, and this is like the Giga Chad of all the buffs, so we're gonna put it into the S tier. Wrath of Afar. This is the Wrath of Gold spell, but you can actually like shoot it now. It becomes like a projectile, so you don't need to be like touching up on them. I think that is deserving of an A tier. Heal from Afar. This allows you to heal your summons or partners from afar. It has good tracking. I didn't actually like use this on any of my summons. Instead, here's a clip of me using it to kill the undead. B tier. Minor Erdtree. This is the spell that Melina uses when you summon her to take on Morgoth. It's a very cool healing spell. It plants down a tree of life that when you go near, you heal off of it, and it just look how quickly my my HP is restoring. Margit cannot outdamage it. S tier. Multi-layered ring of light. You throw a ring of light at your foes. This one does not go through them and wraps around them, squeezing the HP out of them. A solid spell. The only downside is with bigger enemies, they can sort of like get out of it. So A tier. Land of Shadow. This is what the sunflower uses on you. You summon a ton of little holy beams that shoot at your foe. It also lowers the enemy's resistance to holy by 10% for 15 seconds on hit. A really fun spell. It has good tracking, does amazing damage, and borderline plays the game for you. The only problem with this spell is it leaves these like visual puddles all over your screen, but I'm sure that's just like a bug, so I'm gonna give it S tier regardless. Light of Mikola. This is the spell Consort Radon uses at the beginning of phase 2. He floats up, shooting a massive beam of light, and then rains down a bunch of little holy beams. It does great poise damage, it does great damage, I love everything about it. It's so cool that you can actually use it. S tier. It's time for an interesting spell class, the Beastial spells. This class has some very unique effects. It has Rend, which when you hit the enemy, their physical absorption is reduced by 5% for 15 seconds. And it also has Concussion, where when you hit an enemy, their damage is reduced by 10% for 15 seconds. Starting off with Beast Talons. This spell has the Rend effect. You get to slash up your opponents, conjure some claws, and go to town. The obvious downside is having to be right next to your enemy, but the damage on this is crazy. It just absolutely melted Margit, and for that it is deserving of a B tier. Gravel Sling. You throw gravel in your enemy's face. I just love when they allow you to throw some stones into the eyes of your enemy. You can just chain it together and keep on chucking. I'm a fan of this spell, but I don't think it's on the level of Beast Talons or some of the other spells, so I'm going to put it in the C tier. Stone Throw. You conjure a piece of earth from your hands and you just toss it at your enemy. You can charge it to deal some more damage, but it's just okay. The concussion effect is on this, but it doesn't quite save it, so I'm going to put it in C tier. Crucible Horn. This is our first Crucible. I forgot to mention earlier, but Crucible spells, all of them heal 5% of your total HP on hit. That's pretty good. This is a shoulder check where you just ram into your enemy. It keeps you in animation for a bit too long. You can charge it to go a little further and do some extra damage, but the main thing with this spell is good for tossing human enemies, or in Dax's case, stunning him, and boy do I love juggling humans. It's a rather niche spell and you don't really want to use it in like the big boss fights. I'm gonna put it in C tier. Crucible Feathers. This is a machine gun disguised as a spell. Who thought this was okay? This thing just shoots. Sure, it leaves you open to be hit while you're sitting there shooting, but it's so cool and does so much damage, and it heals you, and it's just so good. A tier. Savage Lunge. This spell applies both Rend and Concussion. You leap at your foes, slashing down. You can follow it up with a slam to the ground, causing an upheaval of earth. It's super fun to just jump at your enemy like this. You can be cancelled out of it. The double debuffs are nice, but I just find it very hard to get like a good opening with this spell, so I'm gonna give it a C tier. Beast Claw. This applies Rend. You do the Beast Clergyman cosplay and use his claw projectile attack. You can charge it to go further, and it can even go up walls for some reason. You don't need to be close to your enemy. It does solid damage and it's super fun to use. I'm gonna slap this in the B tier. Crucible Vitality. It heals the user 10 HP per second for 3 minutes. A solid little regen spell. I can't complain. I'm just gonna slap this in the B tier. Earthen Spikes. This is like the Ice Spikes spell. It does apply Rend. It has a smaller than desired radius, but the damage alone keeps it in the B tier. Crucible Quills. This is the breakdancing spell. You spin in circles on the floor while quills fly out of you, piercing your enemies, and this packs a serious punch. They either buffed it in the convergence mod or I slept on it during the DLC, but just look at it go. A tier. Dragon Maw. Applies Rend and Concussion. This is the Dragon Bite attack. It's a fun spell to use. It also leaves you too vulnerable for too long. I don't think it reaches the heights of the quills or some of the other spells, so I'm gonna put it in the B tier. Stone Spears. This applies Rend and Concussion. This is the upgraded version of Gravel Sling. Instead of throwing measly gravel, we can throw straight up stones. This is an upgrade in every aspect of the way, but it also adds the addition of doing really good poise damage. I do think this is just a B tier spell. Beastial Strength grants stamina recovery of 8 and increases all physical damage you deal by 5% for 3 minutes. Pretty good buff. B tier. Seismic Instability applies concussion. With this spell, you stomp on the ground, causing a massive shockwave that also does damage. This cannot be stacked with itself, and hot take, this spell looks a lot cooler than it actually is in reality. It doesn't do a lot of damage considering you're creating like a mini earthquake, so I'm gonna put it in the B tier. Crucible Tail. You spin and hit with your tail. You can hold it to do 2 tail spins, the second one doing a bit more damage. It does some good poise damage as well. It does leave you vulnerable for a bit too long for my liking. I'm gonna slap this in the B tier. Stone Skin. It increases your physical absorption by 15% and causes weak enemy attacks to rebound off of your body for 2 minutes. First off, just look what it does to you. You become just a stony guy. Because the bounce off effect doesn't really work on like most enemies, I think I'm only gonna give this a B tier. It's still solid. Grail's Roar. It applies concussion. This attack both does damage and debuffs enemy. The debuffs are reducing their attack power by 15% and defense by 10% to all nearby enemies. Not only is the debuff insane, but on top of that, look at how much damage this thing is doing. I'm slapping that in the A tier. Garonk's Beast Claw. This applies rend. This is the Beast Claw effect, but instead of just traveling forward, it goes out all around you instead. I can't rate this better than the other Beast Claw. Maybe it's like an inch better, but I'm gonna put it B tier. Stone of Garunk applies concussion. Instead of conjuring a stone from your hands like a little boy earlier, you reach into the ground and grab a hunk of earth like a man. You can chain these stone throws and it's just really, really good. So I'm gonna put it in the A tier. Crucible Regeneration. This one is just on par with Crucible Vitality. Instead of 10 HP per second, you get 8 HP per second alongside 1 FP per second for 3 minutes. I think it's like on par with Vitality. I don't think it's any better, so I'm gonna slap it in the B tier. Landslide. This applies concussion. You literally reach down and create a landslide with your hands that you fling towards foes, ripping up all of the earth in front of you and doing good damage. It's a beast of a spell. The concept of creating a landslide with your bare hands is awesome. I'm gonna put it in the A tier. Crucible Spear. They took the Siluria's Tree Ash of War and turned it into its own spell, and the Ash of War was already great, so I'm happy to say it retains its greatness in spell form, doing a ton of damage and a nice poise. I'm gonna slap this into the A tier. Boulder Volley. This applies concussion. We've thrown gravel, we've thrown rocks, and now we throw boulders. You reach into the earth, launching multiple boulders from the ground into the air that track down your foe. I think this is an easy S tier. Earthquake applies concussion. You straight up create earthquakes with your hands, and this is a way better version of seismic instability. S tier. Roar of Regulia applies concussion. This is Grail's Roar, but in bear form. It doesn't have as many debuffs, but it does more overall damage. You can hold it a lot longer, and I do think it's on par, so I'm going to put it in the A tier. Beastial Fervor. Okay, so this one is a mouthful. Bear with me. It increases endurance and mind by 10. While active, casting spells that apply rend will now restore 7% of total SP, and casting spells that imply concussion will now restore a 7% total of FP. Also, while active, the effectiveness of Stone Skin and Beastial Strength are increased, and it never expires. There's a lot going on, but it's a whole lot of goodness. I'm going to slap this into the S tier. Source of Creation. This increases total HP by 10% while active. Healing received by the Crucible spells is now increased to 10%, and the effectiveness of Crucible Vitality, Regeneration, and Stone Skin are increased. I'm going to slap that into S tier. Crucible Arcs. You shoot multiple arcs of Crucible at the enemy. I like the throwables and that you can shoot multiple out of it. It does some solid damage. This is a great spell. I'm going to put it into A tier. Giant Crucible Arc. It throws one massive arc, does good damage, and the healing on these spells are rather nice. It's hard to go wrong with these, especially with the throwable ones. They're always pretty good. I'm gonna put this in the A tier as well. Spyro. You spawn a little spiral underneath their feet. It takes a little bit to get off. The damage is okay. It's nothing special. I'm gonna slap this into the C tier. Onto the good old lightning spells. This class has a current system. Some spells build up current with you getting a max of 15 current, where others spend current in exchange for more power. That's just to note, we won't be using the current in our showcasing. It's not going to be relevant for this tier list, as I'm not using the spells in succession. Every time I use a spell, I go back to the grace, so there won't be any stacking up, but it's a cool addition that deserves to be mentioned, so I'm putting that here. Lightning Channel, a basic spell. You shoot shoot lightning out of your hand. It's very solid, very effective, but it gets outclassed rather quickly, so I'm going to put it in the C tier. Electrify Armament. This enchants your weapon with lightning damage, nothing special, also in the C tier. Honed Bolt spawns lightning from the sky onto your opponent. You can chain it with itself to keep it going. It has pretty bad range. It does good damage, but again, like the other spell, it gets outclassed rather quickly, so I'm going to put it in the C tier. Lightning Spear. A Spear of Lightning is a solid throwable. It does some okay damage, but like all the other spells in this class so far, it gets outclassed later. That's like the one downside of this class. It just takes all of the spells that you already know and love and just makes them stronger later. So it's hard to like look at these spells and not think like, you're okay, but I know you get better. So I'm going to slap it into the C tier. Electro Charge. Charges your body with lightning. While charged, electric shocks will strike near you for several times, doing damage to nearby enemies. This spell is mainly to charge the current system, and as it's a great way to build current, but because we're not really considering that in our rating, I'm just going to slap this into F tier. It's really good for the class, but in isolation, it doesn't do like anything for you. Lightning Strike. Very similar to the Honed Bolt, where it summons lightning from above you to land on them. It just takes a bit longer to cast. It can't be chained, and it's only saving grace that it does more damage, but I can't give it higher than a C. Dragon Bolt Blessing reduces the FP cost of incantations by 15% and increases casting speed by 30. Solid buffs, no complaints. B tier. Lightning Orb. You throw a massive ball of lightning at your foe. You can chain it together with itself. It looks very cool, does good damage, solid spell. B tier. Oh, I'm losing my voice. Oh my gosh, I've been freaking talking for hours. Static Charge, another curse spell. You cast this on your foe to lower their lightning absorption by 10%, reduces the enemy's ability to block, and deals a small amount of continuous damage. It's good, but doesn't reach the height of some of the other curse spells, and for that, it's also going in C tier. Knight's Lightning Spear. This spell shoots out multiple lightning spears. If you shoot the original bolt, it has a bunch of follow-up bolts. You can charge it to increase how many follow-ups there are. The spell does a lot of damage with the follow-ups. Even with the quicker variant, it also does good damage, so I'm going to put it in the B tier. Ancient Honed Bolt. Now we are basically upgrading all of the spells from earlier to have Ancient Lightning, which just is better all around. It does the same thing. You can chain it. It does good damage. B tier. Ancient Lightning Stake. You slam down a lightning stake to deal damage to the enemy directly in front of you. It does get outclassed later, and you have to be right beside the enemy to get it off. Although the damage is good, that's the only thing that really saves it. I'm gonna keep it in B. Ancient Lightning Beacon. You throw a little ball of lightning that just travels forward. It does damage as it passes through enemies. The majority of the time, this spell isn't going to do much for you. It's one of those spells that are really great against like the dragons or bigger enemies, but most of the time it just stinks. C tier. Electrocution. This is a massive upgrade to the lightning channel spell, having a bigger blast, doing much more damage, and you just hold that down and it just eats them alive. I'm going to put it in the A tier. Ancient Lightning Strike. This spell looks a lot cooler than its counterpart, but I still don't love having this and the Honed Bolt because they're essentially like the same thing. B tier. Ancient Lightning Spear. This is an upgraded version of the Lightning Spear, a very good quick cast spell, and carried me for a good amount of my playthrough. Has crazy good tracking, so I'm going to give it an A tier. Vike's Dragon Bolt summons red lightning all over your body, increasing all lightning damage you deal by 5%, reduces the FP cost of incants by 25%, and increases casting speed by 30. An amazing buff. A tier. Fortisax's Lightning Stake. Now, this is how it's done. The one lightning stake just doesn't get the job done. Having two really makes it so much better. 2 times better, you would say. Only downside is taking so long to get them off, but when you do connect, oh, what a spell. And I think it just squeaks its way into the A tier. Ancient Lightning Storm. Spawn a lightning storm on your enemies. It's just as cool and as good as it sounds. It strikes down and outwards with the potential to get multiple hits. I'm going to give this an A tier. Dragon Bolt of Florisax. Another buff spell. You gain 10% increase to lightning damage. You lower your FP costs of your incantations by 25%, and you increase your casting speed by 45 and gain a 10% absorption for 3 minutes. What a solid buff. A tier. Time Warp. This is an interesting buff. You literally bend time so all of your actions are sped up for the next 2 minutes. The amount of charges increases how much speed you get, the lowest being 1% and the max being 15%. And this includes your movement, this includes your casting speed. It's just really good. I'm gonna slap it into the A tier. Ageless Innervation. Fill yourself up with Draconic Vigor for 1 minute. For every stack of current consumed, you gain an additional damage negation and HP regen for a max of 20% damage negation and 30 HP per second. These buffs are really good, although they do rely on the stacks, so it's hard to look at, but I'm still going to slap it in the A tier. Ear of the Dragon God. This is another absolute nuke of a spell. This is the massive explosion that Plasudicactus uses on you, and I'm happy to confirm it does hit as hard. S tier. Death Lightning Storm. These Death Lightning spells also apply Death Blight. The damage is okay, it's just shy of the Lightning Storm that we've already looked at earlier. The same downsides apply with the addition of doing less damage. It does give Death Blight, but that status effect is okay. Like, I'm glad they did something with it, but like with Death Blight, you're either gonna make it feel underwhelming or too overpowered. I don't think there was a good way to really do Death Blight, so I'm gonna put it in B tier. Death Spark. The middle brother of the electrocution spells. It's a solid damage giver. It's not on the tier of electrocution itself, but it's better than Lightning Channel, so I'm going to put it in the B tier. Death Knight's Supplication. When you gain 5 stacks of current, you gain an additional 1 FP regen per second, stacking up to a max of 3 FP per second. Additionally, when you cast a spell that spends current, you are healed by an amount based on how many stacks were spent. This is a really solid current buff. I'm going to put it in the B tier. Death Lightning Stake. It's a better version of Lightning Stake. You plant it in the ground and then a cone shape sprawls out, shooting lightning from above. It's a very good spell and a good twist on the traditional Lightning Stake. I'm going to give this an A tier. Death Lightning Barrage. This is a godly spell. You hold your arms out and you win. Just look, it just summons lightning from thin air and a lot of it. It also auto targets for you and just plays the game for you. S tier. Next up is the class, which I think is the most broken no matter how you cut it, and these guys cut me up some filet mignon. We have Black Flame. Black Flame Dart, the basic starter spell of most classes, a small throwable. Others are good, but none of them reach the heights of Black Flame. The most basic of spells is doing an ungodly amount of DPS. We're gonna put that in the B tier. Black Flame Burst. You shoot Black Flame out of the palm of your hand. Just think of this like Catch Flame, but with Black Flame. Just look at it go. It's Black Flame. It's good. It's B tier. Black Flame Blade. You enchant your sword with the Black Flame. They've thought of it all. Put it in B tier. Black Flame Orb. This is a direct upgrade to the dart. You can charge it for more damage, and you can also throw it in rapid succession. It shreds HP, and it's honestly my go-to, and I'm going to put it in A tier. Scourging Black Flame. You shoot a small wave of Black Flame in front of you. This is the weakest link of the Black Flame spells. It can sometimes miss small enemies. It has a short radius and is just wonky looking. That being said, it's still Black Flame, so it's getting B tier. Soul Burn, a curse that deals continuous holy damage and lowers the target's absorption to holy damage by 10%. It only lasts 24 seconds, although it is short, it is very effective. It also stacks with lesser Soul Burn. We are going to put it in B tier. Burrowing Black Flame. It sends a small wisp of Black Flame towards your foe that then burrows inside of their body. While it's burrowed, the enemy takes continuous holy damage, and after a short time, the flame explodes, doing even more holy damage. You basically send a bomb in them, and then it just blows up and gives them some Black Flame. The explosion is really nice. I love the description of this spell. I'm gonna put it in B tier. Black Flame Mortar. This works like the other mortar spells that we've seen. When the enemy gets too close, it won't be effective, but it's still good at what it does, and it gives them Black Flame, so it's going in the B tier. Blessing of Gloam. Summon Black Fire within, increasing holy damage you deal by 5%, decreasing FP consumption of incantations by 10%, and increases all absorption duration by 5%. Lasts 3 minutes. It's a very solid buff. We're gonna slap it into the A tier. Black Flame Ritual. Summon a small circle of black flame around you, just like the Godskin Noble does. It acts like a nice personal bubble to where if they want to get into your personal space, they gotta get burnt for doing so. It does damage as long as they're standing on it. I really think it's a solid spell. I'm gonna put it in the B tier. Noble Presence. You already know how I feel about them normal burst push back spells, but none of them are black flame, baby. Put them in the B tier. Black Firestorm spawns a mini black flame tornado that spews black flame absolutely everywhere. It lasts as long as you hold it. I mean, come on, just look at this spell. I mean, after I stop casting, it's just eating up market. This is deserving of an S tier. Black Flame Wave. This shoots waves of black flame forward in a cone shape. It has a great distance. It covers most of the arena, but even for black flame, it's kind of lacking in the damage department. So for that, I'm going to give it a B tier. God Slayer Sickle. This is like the Carrion Slicer, but black flame. Just look at what it did to Radon. He never even had a chance to phase shift because I ate him up so quickly. The only downside is needing to be like right beside them, but it's still really good. So we're going to put it in A tier. Black Blade. This is the Malekith Black Blade spell. It is very cool. You chain it multiple times, and this is where we get our first Greater Soul Burn, where it chops a chunk of their HP off on the first hit. This will be a normal for the spells going forward. I like that it's a projectile, so I don't have to get too close if I don't want to, and it's just really good, so I'm going to put it in the A tier. Soul Annihilation. This is an upgrade to Soul Burn. It lowers the target's absorption to holy by 10% alongside dealing continuous damage. We're going to slap it in the A tier. Dusk Bolt shoots a fireball that spawns a bunch of scary red black flame. Does really good damage. It's better than our other fireball. I'm gonna put it in the A tier. Deicide, the spell that makes you feel like you are him. Just look at that combo. So you first launch yourself into the air, you slam down and do a Malekith version of his like a million slashes in a second. Then you follow it up with a massive black flame tornado around yourself. This spell is godly and it deserves S tier. Godslayer's Devotion. It increases all holy damage by 5%, reduces the stamina cost of attacks by 20%, reduces the FP cost of weapon skills by 80%, but reduces the total FP by 90%. This is your typical melee based buff that locks you into melee. It doesn't reach the heights of the other ones, but I do like it, so I'm gonna put it into B tier. Wrath of the Queen increases total FP by 25%, lowers the FP cost of spells by 20%, and increases your poise, but lowers your total HP by 30%, and lowers all non-spell damage by 75%. Each time you cost a Godslayer incant, you are healed by 7% of your total HP, and you gain 30 stamina points. It's all over the place, but I do like it. I'm gonna put it in the A tier. Onto one of the coolest spell types in the game, Madness. They actually made Madness do something within the Convergence mod. When you give an enemy Frenzied Flame or Madness, it deals 6% of their total HP as like a damage proc, and it also makes it so the target deals 20% less damage to you for 20 seconds after the proc. Starting off with the Frenzied Flare, you shoot a small burst of Frenzied Flame out of your face. It's an okay starting spell. You can rapid fire it. It's very low damage, but it's a nice starting spell. I'm gonna put it in the C tier. Touch of Frenzy. This is basically the electrocution spell, except it shoots out multiple bursts of frenzy. It's a very good starting spell and does some good damage. B tier. The Flame of Frenzy. This is the classic frenzy spell. It shoots out a burst frenzy flame towards your enemies. It has a nice wide spread. You are locked into place when you cast it. It does some good damage and some good poise damage, and the fact that they buffed Madness within itself, I do think that makes this deserving of A tier. Frenzied Burst. This is the Frenzy Sniper spell. You take one big shot of Frenzy at your foe, you can charge it up, and it shoots across the map. It does insane damage, and it's an A tier spell. Mark of Frenzy. This is essentially the Vike War Spear Ash of War as a spell, but instead of jumping into your enemies and like getting that additional damage, you're just sort of like touching the ground to summon the 3 Fingers of Frenzy. It does okay. okay damage. The fire stays on the ground for a good amount of time, but overall, because of what it's based off of, it feels underwhelming, so I'm gonna put it in the C tier. Deranged Fury. Before I get into what the buff does, I just gotta point out how silly the frenzied eyes look. I love it. Onto the actual buff, it increases melee damage by 10%, it increases all absorption by 10%, and reduces the stamina cost by 20%. But the downside is you're constantly building madness on yourself while it's applied, and just for that, I think it just falls so short of being great. I'm gonna put it in the B tier. Inescapable Frenzy. The Kissy spell. You grab your opponent, you look them deep into their eyes, and then you shoot your madness straight into them. It doesn't work on any enemy that isn't human, and for that, it is a C tier. Hiatus Flare. This is a direct upgrade from the Frenzied Flare. It is a lot better. It can do so much more DPS, and I honestly think it deserves an A tier. The Howl of Shibriri. It's a buff. It causes madness buildup for those in the radius of the Shriek. It increases all fire damage you deal by 5%. It grants 2 FP recovery per second and grants additional stamina recovery. However, you do get the continuous madness buildup. I do think it is also a B tier buff. Mind Melt. This is a curse. It does continuous fire damage. It lowers the target's fire absorption by 20%, which is really, really good. It lowers the target's attack power by 10%. It reduces the target's ability to block and reduces their madness by resistance by 50%. I believe this is on the shorter side. I forgot to write down how long it was, but it's a godly curse. I'm gonna put it in A tier. Next up, we have Tendrils of Shibriri. You shoot arching flames of frenzy from your eyes, causing it to shoot a straight line at your enemies. It also leaves fire on the ground, doing some okay damage on top of the initial damage, but I think it's just okay. I'm gonna put it in B tier. Midra's Flame of Frenzy. You hold up Midra's Frenzied Orb and you shoot out frenzy absolutely everywhere. Also, I was at my family's house for the holidays, so that's why I wasn't on my computer when I recorded this. I was on my brother's, so don't mind the lag. But it is A tier because it's so good. But think about all the little Timmies around the world that's gonna lag when they click the spell. The poor Timmies. We gotta reach out. We gotta watch out for the little Timmies. I'm gonna put this A tier for them. Three Finger Flare. This is the OP sniper spell that I was talking about earlier, but it shoots 3 times at once. What? S tier. Unendurable Frenzy. This shoots out a continuous amount of frenzy, but you can't really control where it goes. Maybe it's just a skill issue with me. It's really good. I will say that much. I'm gonna give it a tier. Eye of Frenzy. This is another spell where it's only really good against bigger enemies. It's another ball that just keeps on moving forward to the end of time, but it shoots out a lot of frenzy along the way. B tier. Disintegration. This is another curse. It does continuous fire damage and reduces the absorption by 10%. This is just straight up a downgrade from the other one. What are we doing here, guys? I'm gonna put that in the C tier. Eye of Chaos. You summon your own Eye of Frenzy in the sky, constantly building up madness to all enemies. Just visually, this looks amazing, but it's only really good for giving frenzied procs, which is a good proc, don't get me wrong, but in the grand scheme of things, with the other spells that will give you proc with lots of damage, it's a little lackluster. I do love the spectacle. We're going to put it in the B tier. Chaos Beam. Shoot a Comet Azura-like beam of frenzy out of your face, doing continuous damage. You can walk around a lot more freely in comparison to a Comet Azure, and I think that alone puts it into the S tier. Apocalyptic Flames. This turns the whole arena into your personal frenzied playground. S tier. Heart of Chaos. Gives immunity to madness, increases all fire damage by 10%, and causes madness buildup to any enemy near you. It lowers all absorption by 25%, and lowers your total stamina by 20%. I think this is a balanced spell. A big selling point here is the immunity to madness, and I think that alone will net it A tier. Three Fingers Embrace. Increases all non-spell fire damage you deal by 10%, increases all absorption by 15%, grants 10% HP recovery per second, and reduces the cost of the weapon skills by 70%. It's a really good melee spell, especially if you're just gonna spam Ash of Wars, so I'm going to put this in a A tier. Now that the madness is over, it's time for the purest form of bleed, Blood Flame, Blood Seeker. This is your normal shooty spell. It costs a small amount of HP. It can cause the target to bleed. This damage is subpar, but it does give bleed, so I'm going to keep it in the C tier. Blood Flame Talons. You swipe a Blood Flame slash onto the enemy, causing an explosion, building up bleed. The only downside is needing to be at the enemy, but besides that, it is a really solid spell, so I will give it B tier. Siphon the Formless. You can use this spell to heal you, which is handy because all spells in this take away HP, but at the same time, just like use a flask, this is just like not as good, so I'm going to put it as the C tier. Blood Flame Blade enchants your weapon with bleed and fire damage. I'm gonna slap that into B tier. Blood Boon Spray. Throw wet burning blood at your foes. It shoots in a straight line and leaves splotches of bloody fire on the floor. It does bleed build up quickly. For that, I will give it B tier. Dynastic Replenishment, a 2-minute buff that heals 14 HP per second. A solid spell, especially in context of the class. I'm going to give it a B tier. Boiling Blood, a curse that makes the target take continuous damage over the duration. Their fire absorption is lowered by 20%, and their bleed resistance is lowered by 50%, making them super vulnerable to that sweet bleed. A tier. Purifying Cautery heals you of your status. F tier. Blood Boon Slash. It's like the Blood Flame Talon, except it just shoots it out for you. You don't have to get in their face. You can stay far away. It does really good damage. It's a really solid spell. A much needed upgrade. A tier. Sanguine Pull rips blood out of your foe and pulls it into your own, dealing damage to your enemy and restoring 25% of your total HP. A much better version of the Siphon. I'm gonna give it a B tier. Blood Flame Outburst, a burst spell that's on par with the Black Flame one. It leaves a pool of blood flame on the ground, causes bleed, and deals good damage. A B tier. Blood Flame Scythe, Ansbach Scythe spell, so you can do some simple slashes or charge it to increase the amount of slashes. It's a really solid spell that shreds through your enemies. You do have to get closer, but it's still amazing, so I'm gonna keep it in the A tier. Dynastic Sacrament restores 100% of your FP and stamina in exchange for 25% of your total HP and causes some bleed buildup. It's a good trade. It's okay. I don't see this being super useful, but it can be, so I'm going to keep it in the B tier. Blood Flame Scatter. Shoot out a bunch of blood flame, and it's doing good damage, leaving good puddles of blood flame, and just very solid overall. I'm going to give it A tier. Outer Realms Gift increases all fire damage you do by 5% and heals the player 8 HP per second, lasts 2 minutes, and is a good buff. The healing is appreciated on top of the fire damage, so I'm going to keep it in the B tier. Hex of Mogwin. You summon the Hex Ring on your opponent and they constantly build up bleed. It's really good at what it does. It just is proccing bleed for you over and over again. It's strong, but just like the frenzied version of this, where it's just giving you frenzied, it's lackluster in the grand scheme of things, so I'm going to put it in the B tier. Blood Flame Missile. Shoot a massive Blood Flame Missile at your foe, leaving a trail of Blood Flame on the ground. It does a lot of damage to you, but the trade-off is well worth it. I'm going to keep this one in A tier. It just rips through your enemy, and I do think it's really good. Blood Rain. This is one of those spells you just gotta see in action. It rains down Blood Flame and deals massive amounts of damage as it does. S tier. Nihil. This is the spell where you literally become Moog, steal his sauce, and use Nihil, and thankfully it's just as good as when he uses it on you. It heals you, it does lots of damage, it procs bleeds. It's an S tier spell. Blood Pact increases all non-spell fire damage you deal by 10%, increases all absorption by 10%, increases your total stamina by 20%, but lowers total FP by 80%. On top of that, when bleeding occurs in your vicinity, you're healed by 50%. I think that alone saves it and makes it an instantly go-to for many melee players, and I'm going to put this in the A tier. Hidden Mother's Blessing increases total FP by 25%, lowers the FP cost of spells by 20%, and increases your poise but lowers the total HP by 30%. And it also lowers all non-spell damage by 75%. A solid legendary spell. I'm a big fan of the FP increase. I'm going to keep this in A tier. The class that doesn't know what it wants to be, giving you spells with poison, rot, bleed, and deathblight. I introduce to you the rot class, starting it off with Poison Mist. I mean, you already know how I feel about mists at this point. The only time this has ever been good is like for the DTS cheese. I'm gonna keep it in F tier. Poison Orb. This is just a throwable mist. It just ticks me off. It does do some damage when it lands, and that's what's saving it from the F tier, so it can get by, it can get a C. Swarm of Flies. Throw flies that seek out and bite your foe until they bleed. It's a cool spell, but it wasn't the greatest overall. I'm gonna keep it in C tier. Poison Armament. Enchants your weapon with poison. Poison is okay. I'm gonna keep it in C tier. Chitinous Shell. A buff that increases physical absorption by 20%, non-physical damage absorption by 10%, granting additional stamina recovery, and granting 8 HP per second. Is solid defensive buff. B tier. Pest Threads. This is a fun spell. You shoot off a bunch of pest threads that chase down your foe. It does solid damage and saves this class from mediocrity because so far it's been pretty bad. B tier. Blighted Orb. Just like the Poison Orb, it does small amounts of damage and just leaves a mist of Deathblight. Oh boy. C tier. Rotten Mist. Rot is a godly effect. Although in the convergence mod they have nerfed it, but it is still one of the better mists. I will keep it in C tier. Miranda Bloom. I think this should just be with the Beastial class, if I'm honest, but whatever. It's here. It's with the rest of the random stuff. It does the Miranda Flower attack. It does good damage, and it rains down whatever the heck it rains down. Beams of flower, I guess. B tier. Convert Corruption. If the enemy is affected by a non-death blight status effect, that effect is cancelled and you are healed by 100% of your HP and FP. It's such a random spell, but I'll take converting poison to a free heal any day of the week. We will put it in the B tier. Rotten Breath. The dragon breath that shoots out rot. It does really good damage as well as applying rot. Very good, but he gets better, so we're gonna keep it in B tier. Poison Dart. You shoot a dart of poison, building up poison and doing good damage. Finally, a good throwable that isn't pest threads. B tier. Pest's Tenacity. A buff that increases non-physical spell damage by 10% and reduces stamina costs of attacks by 25%. A nice offensive buff. Nothing too crazy though. We will keep it in the B tier. Carrion Swarm. This is the Swarm of Flies spell, but you fed them a bunch of spinach and they powered up like Popeye the Sailor. It runs them down, does a lot of bleed, eats them up. I will give it a B tier. It is so much better. Exeek's Decay. It's a better version of Rotten Breath. Rotten Breath was already good, so I'm going to put this in the A tier. Scarlet Aeonia. This is the Melania attack where she jumps into the big flower, so it summons a massive explosion of Scarlet Rot and does some impact damage. It's a great spell, but doesn't quite do enough damage to be considered godly. Sadly enough, I'm gonna keep this in A tier. Blighted Contagion. Release a slow-moving orb of blight that seeks out the foe. In other words, a moving blighted mist. I think they just got bored with this class at this point. I'm gonna keep this in F tier. Pest Darts. A better version of Pest Threads. It hits much harder. It can be rapidly casted, but it's still like the same attack. So I'm gonna put it in A tier. There's not much to say about it. Rotten Burst. A burst spell, but it's not like your traditional burst spell. It does like Melania's flower burst. So like every time she attacks in phase 2, it has that like burst of butterflies. It does that attack, and it does good damage. It applies rot. It's cool looking. I've always liked it. I'm gonna keep it in B tier. Pest Thread Spears. Shoots even better pest threads out of your body, hunting down the foe. It has amazing tracking and it melts the HP, and this is the one that always gets you. That being said, it's just more pest threads, so I'm gonna it's gonna bump up. It's going to A tier. Rot Spray. This is like Rotten Breath, but without like the big dragon animation. It just comes out of your hand. It does good continuous damage. It applies rot. I'm gonna put it in the B tier. Aspect of the Scorpion. Increases all absorption by 20% and decreases the stamina cost of attacks by 20%, but it increases the FP cost of spells by 100% and lowers your total FP by 30%. When rot or poison occurs in your vicinity, you receive a non-stacking increase to all non-spell physical damage you deal by 10%. I think the proc effect definitely saves this from B tier, so I'm gonna move it into the A tier. It's Blessing of the Sealed God. Increase spell casting speed by 40, grants immunity to rot, poison, and deathblight, grants 2 FP recovery per second, but lowers all absorption by 30%. It also lowers your total stamina by 25%. When poison or rot occurs in your vicinity, it increases all physical damage you deal by 5% and reduces the cost of incantations by 50%. I think this will also follow it up and go into the A tier. Rotten Butterflies. Now this is a tricky spell because it does a lot of damage, but it keeps you still for a very long time. There's also the chance of the enemy moving out of the way and the exploding butterflies not hitting them. So having like a smaller radius definitely does hurt this spell. I think I'm gonna sadly keep it in A tier. And now we are on to the final set of spells, the sleep-based spells. Sleep has also been changed in the convergence mod. On top of putting your target to sleep like normal, for 20 seconds after the proc, it reduces the damage the target deals and increases the damage the target receives. I couldn't find the percentage numbers, but maybe I was just looking in the wrong places. Sephoric Fume. Cast a sleep out of your hand. It just puts the target to sleep. Sleep mist out of your hand. It's good. It does its job well. But it's just putting them to sleep. C tier. Spirit Vapor. Attack your enemy with this vapor effect. The same effect that like the Ancestor Spirit spews out during that fight. It does some solid damage all the way through, even when it leaves a puddle of Spirit Vapor, but it's just kind of okay. And because you need your enemies to like stay in the vapor to get the most out of it, I think it is a C tier spell. Ancestral Conduit. Channel to heal you and your nearby allies. Oh, I forgot to mention that this class is also a focused around summons. I didn't end up using any summons in the demonstration, but this spell is just okay. I'm gonna keep it in C tier as well. Dream Cloak. Increases all absorption by 20%, grants additional stamina recovery, and reduces equip load. It lasts for 3 minutes. It's a good defensive buff. I'm gonna put this in the B tier. Spirit Seekers. This spell has Spirit Erosion. Spirit Erosion deals additional continuous damage over 10 seconds and lowers the target's resistance to magic damage by 10%. You shoot out 3 airborne wisps that chase down your enemies. This spell is very effective and the erosion is a nice touch. I will keep this in the B tier. Spirit Link. Makes the caster immune to spirit summon debuffs and grants 1 FP recovery per second. And as we went over earlier, the debuffs are very limiting, so this will also join its brother in the A tier. Blinding Veil. A curse that removes them from combat and hides the caster's visual presence, and it lasts for 20 seconds. It's a cool spell, nothing crazy. It's another one of those like assassin type spell. I'm not going to be as mean here. I'm just going to put it in the C tier. Vapor Spray. Shoots a long line of spirit vapor. It does some very solid damage and it leaves a good long trail to keep your enemy in. I do think this is a little bit of an upgrade from the last one. I'm going to put this in the B tier. Berserk. A curse that temporarily causes them to opportunistically attack or be attacked by any entity nearby. This is cool because you can make enemies fight each other with it. And as cool as it is, what's the real use case of this? Like if in most boss fights, it's just one guy. I guess sometimes there's multiple and that could be a fun interaction, but I do think this is just a C tier spell. Reoccurring Nightmare. A curse that makes it so every time they fall asleep, they take damage. This is very like Darkrai from Pokemon Core, where like if you're sleeping, he's eating your dreams. So even it makes the sleep procs feel even better. I'm gonna put this into C tier. Psychic Corrosion. A curse that while active, the target takes continuous magic damage, deals 50% less non-physical damage, and loses 30% of their total poise. It's a very solid curse. B tier. Seeker Salvo. This spell has the effect of the Greater Spirit Erosion. It deals additional continuous damage over 10 seconds and lowers the target's resistance to magic damage by 10%. This is a stronger version of the Spirit Seekers, and it does a great job hunting down the enemies. We're gonna slap this bad boy into S tier. Call to Slumber. A curse that builds continuous sleep. It lasts for 90 seconds. It's a solid way to put the enemies to sleep for you. You don't have to do anything. It's very low effort. It does the job well, but it's just a status effect, so I'm going to put it in the B tier. Bewitch. A curse that turns enemies into allies for 30 seconds. This is a fun idea, but it doesn't have a ton of practical use cases. I'm going to slap this into the C tier. Psychic Agony. A spell that removes 15% of the target's HP for 3 seconds, and then it replaces it. This is a super strategic spell. You can use it near the end of fights for just like an insta win. taking away the last 15% of HP. Solely because of that, it is going into A tier. Vapor Wave. You T-pose, summoning a wave of vapor in a cone shape. The vapor is still very strong, so that alone gets it into the B tier. Spirit Siphon. You channel a massive vacuum of spirit energies, dealing magic damage to all enemies within the large area, while simultaneously healing you. It sounds a lot better than it is, but it has some good regen, some very low damage, but it is good. I'm gonna keep it in the B tier. Spirit Weaving increases all absorption by 20%, grants 10 HP recovery per second, and grants additional stamina recovery, but increases the FP cost of spells by 50%. When this is in effect, it heals yourself and allies. It's a solid defensive spell, but it doesn't quite reach the legendary status that it's advertised as, so I'm gonna put this in the B tier. Dream Melt increases all magic damage you deal by 10%, increases casting speed by 50, and improves the effectiveness of dodge rolls, but lowers your HP by 30%. This one is superior to the other one, in my opinion, so I'm going to put this in the A tier. Watchful Spirit. This is sort of like Phalanx, but it shoots off multiple times. It does really solid damage as well, and I kind of slept on this spell. I've never really used it. I haven't used many of the DLC spells, but I'm gonna put this in the A tier. Rings of Spectral Light shoots off a bunch of rings, first taking the form of like 8s before breaking off into little rings to track down your enemies. This spell is good, one that I've never used before as well, and I didn't expect it to do as much damage as it does. I think it's quite as good as the other one though, so I'm gonna put it into B tier. And with that wraps up the whole tier list. I will hover over it here and you can take a good look at it. It is very long. This voiceover has been going on for like 3 hours now. If you did enjoy, be sure to like, and thank you for sticking all the way through. If you did, I hope this made your day just a little bit better. Yeah, I appreciate you. I will see you in the next video. It has been CurtisTheCactus, guys, and I will see you later. Goodbye.